Actually, I was the third phone call and the only one that said yes, so you're stuck with me. Sorry. Okay. I kept notes because I'm old and I forget things. My name's Andrea. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is July 5th, 1986. And I don't tell you that because I think I'm all that in a bag of chips, because I really don't know shit. What I tell you that for is because I want you to know that I serve a mighty God and I stand on the shoulders of some ancestors in AA that saved my life. And I'm very grateful for them today. So anything that I say about AA, they probably fed me or I heard it in a meeting and stole it. So we'll start with my life story, or a little bit of it. One of the stories that my dad always loved to tell about me and mortify me and embarrass me about was when I was 2 years old. They always told me by the time I was 1, I knew how to talk like an adult, and I talked in complete sentences, mainly because I was raised by adults and there were no kids around me. And so by the time I was 2, I was in church, and my mom had worked with me really hard to teach me how to sing Jesus Loves Me. And I was supposed to go up in front of this church and sing Jesus Loves Me. And so I got up there in my pretty little white dress and my white patent leather shoes and a little white bow in my hair. And I sang Roll Out the Burgie, We're Gonna Have a Barrel of Fun. It was the local jingle of the beer commercial. And my mother was mortified and in tears, and the whole church busted up laughing. So that should have told them something about me. That should have told them something about me. I grew up in a family that was very dysfunctional. I don't any longer blame my parents for all the bad stuff that happened to me. I understand today that they only had what they had to work with, and they weren't given a whole lot. So they transmitted dysfunctional crap to me. I will tell you that my uncle molested me, and nobody protected me. By the time I was 10 years old, I had had my first drink. And I don't remember much about my childhood, but I remember my first drink. My grandma, I had a cold, and my grandma gave me a hot toddy. And I remember she pulled this bottle out, it had Jim Beam wrote on it. And she poured a little in a cup, put it with something, probably tea or something, I don't know what she gave me. But when I took that first drink, it made me feel really warm inside. And it made me feel like all these pieces that were flying around outside of me suddenly got glued together. And for the next 13 years, I fought to get that feeling back over and over and over and over. And I could never get it back. I would get there, but then I would pass that. And then I would end up in bad things like jails, institutions, almost dead. One night, when I was 17, I was out running around. By the time I hit 13, I was like a rebellious hellion, 10 foot tall, bulletproof, and nobody could tell me anything. And I figured out that I could use men to get in liquor stores, and it didn't cost me much, just a little time on my back, big deal. And that is the way I looked at life. I only used you. And women were for nothing, so you didn't count. And so one night when I was 17, I met a guy. He could get in a liquor store. He was 21. Match made in heaven, right? We got married. My whole reason for marrying him was because he could get in a liquor store. Wow, good choices there. So we were married for 5 years, and in the middle of that, I had 2 children, and our life was like a barroom brawl. He would go out and get drunk and stay gone for 3 days. He would come back, we would get in a fight, he would beat me up, I'd go get drunk. It was just a revolving, pay you back, you jerk kind of thing. And so when I was 22, we had split for a little bit, and one night I went to a bar. I waited till everybody was asleep. Kids were asleep, he's asleep. I left, went out to a bar, and we were kind of back and forth with each other. And at that night, the kids were with him, and I was out doing my thing. And I told myself I was only going to drink one, because my mom, who happened to be a registered nurse in a treatment center, threw a big book at me not long before that. And I remember reading in this book, drink one and stop abruptly. So I kept trying to prove this stupid ass book that was under when I found it, when I finally got sober, it was under the leg of my couch so it wouldn't wobble. the big book. And so I look back at this and God, I was crazy. Anyways, and by then I was blackout drinking. I'd get one drink in me, and then I had no control. I would black out. The lights were on, I wasn't there. I don't know what I was doing. And I would come to, and I would go, oh crap, who's around me? What are we doing? What did we do? Oh Lord, where's my clothes? And this was over and over. Drinking wasn't fun for me for a long time because I kept blacking out. And so this night, I found myself, I heard somebody banging, and I come to out of this blackout, and I'm in the rig of a truck, and there's somebody screaming, get out of the truck now, this is the police. And so I open the door of the rig and fall on the sheriff and knock him over. And apparently, while I was blacked out drunk, these 2 guys had talked me into their rig and were driving up and down the highway on I-44 wanting to sell me. And this sheriff, his name's Walking Stick, he's dead now, saved my life that night, even though I hated his guts at that time. He arrested me. I ended up in Claremore because Catoosa didn't have, I was out at the truck stops, and Catoosa didn't have a jail, so I ended up in the jail in Claremore. And I remember coming to, I had fallen asleep on a metal table, and I was by myself, and I looked in this little weird mirror, and I started to wash my face. And I looked in the mirror, and I went, there's no point. Fuck it. I ain't going to do it. And I somehow got a friend of mine to come and bail me out. Got the money because I got arrested for public drunken solicitation to prostitution, even though I didn't know I was, because I was too drunk to know. But today I understand that sheriff saved my life. So anyways, I get home and I think, okay, I'm going to get it all together. So I go to church one more time. Nothing, no offense, I'm a Christian here. Church didn't work for me. I went back down the aisle to get saved one more time and went out and got drunk. And then this started a period of constantly going out every time I could to just drink one and prove the book wrong, and I couldn't. And so when I finally got sober, I didn't even really mean to get sober. I really didn't. I prayed all the time. I hate you, God. Why do you let me live? I hate you, God. Why do you let me come to? That was my prayer every day. And my last drunk on July 4th, I had, by then I had divorced him because he was the problem. Get rid of him. And I'm still drinking. And I keep thinking, well, I thought it was him. And so I decided I had paid all the bills. The kids were with him. I'm going to go out and I'm just going to have one. I'm just going to have a good time. It's 4th of July. And all I remember of that night, I remember having a pitcher because it was free pitchers. And somewhere in the middle of that pitcher of beer, I blacked out. And I came to, vaguely, some guy with long blonde hair and a long beard and a mustache was driving me back to wherever, I don't even remember where I was, and I puked down the side of his car, and he was cussing me for that. But I woke up, it was right at sun up, and I was behind the wheel of my ex-husband's car. And to this day, I don't know how I got in his car. But what had happened the week before is my neighbor had come down and told me if I ever yelled at my kids the way I did that night, that she would call DHS on me. So I still had that in my head. And what went through my mind was, oh my God, he knows about me, and he took my car because it's a better car, and I'm never going to see my kids again. And so I remember looking up into the sunrise and slumped over the wheel in this car, and I just went, F you, God. If you want me sober, you do it. I'm going to go get drunk. And that was probably the most honest prayer I ever said in my life. And so I set off to get drunk. And I called this guy. I always had an enabler somewhere, and there was this one guy that always knew where my car was, because I didn't know where my car was. All I know is I'm in this car, and I'm hoping, okay, maybe I'm wrong, maybe he didn't take my car, I don't know, maybe this guy can help me find my car. So I called him. Sure enough, he knew where it was. And so I had thought, well, I'm just going to go get drunk tonight. And I don't remember what got in the way. Something, I think it was my mom or somebody, had me doing something. So I didn't get drunk that night. The next day was Sunday. So I went back to church again. And I was walking down the aisle in the church going, this is bullshit. This isn't going to, I'm having this dialogue with God going, what the hell am I doing here? Oh, am I going to get baptized for the 5,000th time? You know, when I leave here, I'm going to get drunk. And just about that time, this lady taps me on the shoulders. I look around, and it's a girl. I was a nurse's aide at a hospital in lockup psych, of all places. Should have stayed there. Anyways, I didn't know that she was staying there in the evening and going downstairs to the treatment center for alcoholism during the day. I just gave her water every night. She tapped me on the shoulder, and I looked back at her, and she said, are you an alcoholic, and do you need help? And I remember going, what the hell, God? Really? But I heard myself say, yes, I do, because I'm going to go kill myself. And she talked me into having coffee with her, and it turned out another guy that I knew who had gotten clean. He had just gotten out of prison, and he was there. So here's these two motley crew people with me, and they talked me into going to a meeting. And the next day I met up with them for coffee, and they talked me into going to treatment. And I went to treatment for 6 weeks at the hospital that I worked in. And it just so happened the day I checked into treatment was the day my benefits went into effect. Tell me there's not a God. Bullshit. I know there is. I'm here. And so I had a counselor named Ben, and another counselor named Bob, and another counselor named Sam. Sam always pissed me off because he was my group counselor person, and he would elbow me and say, Andrea, you with us? I learned how to check out mentally and emotionally a long time ago, and I didn't want to be in my skin, and he made me learn to be in my skin. And Bob and Ben, I know they taught me a really lot of good stuff, but the only thing I remember from them when I got out was Go to meetings like you drank. Go to meetings when you get out of here. Go to meetings, go to meetings. So when I got out of there, the only thing I had in my head was go to meetings. So I went to meetings, and I didn't plan to go to as many that I went to, but I went to 3 and 4 meetings a day, every time I could find a meeting, for the first 3 years of my sobriety. My first sponsor, her name was Jo Disher. She ran Central Service. She had me out doing 12-step calls. That was back in the day when we did live 12-step calls. Even before I had a year, women were grabbing me and going, come on, we're going to go carry the message. And like I had 9 months, she had me go speak in Manford. And I was thinking about that yesterday. How did she ever find me? Because we didn't have cell phones then. But she always found a way to find me. So, and I remember I went out to Manford one time, and I'm thinking, oh, wow, okay, this will be good. It was 3 old men and me, very awkward. I'm like, oh, God. So, but those kind of things made me excited about recovery. And Jo, I don't think that sponsors, I didn't. Do what you want. If your sponsor doesn't work for you anymore, find another one. My sponsor, Jo, told me, I am not God. Do not put me on a pedestal, because the minute you do, I will fall. And you might get drunk over that, and that ain't my fault. Find a God and find another sponsor if I'm not working for you. So I had another lady, Carla May, who walked me through the steps. And when I met her, I didn't mean to ask her to be my sponsor. I remember walking up to her at the podium after she spoke, and I heard come out of my mouth, would you be my sponsor? And I'm like, what the hell did I do that for? She's the one that drug my ass through the steps. She didn't give me a choice. I would like to tell you that I tiptoed through, and I was so happy to do 1, 2, and 3 and all that. By the time I got to her, I knew that I'm powerless over alcohol and that my life's unmanageable. I wouldn't have came to AA if I didn't know that. Jo Disher, was the one that taught me to look in step 2 when I got hung up on insanity, because restore me to sanity. I'm a brainiac here. Restore? I never had any, so God can't restore me. And she said, well, let's look back in your life, Andrea. I came up with the first 30 seconds that the doctor had me in his arms, I had sanity. Okay, we can work with that. That's how I did step 2. Step 3, the first thing I did was I took a piece of paper and I wrote down the things that I wanted my God to be. Not yours, mine. All loving, all caring, and all forgiving. And every day I would pull that piece of paper out, and I carried it in my pocket. My sponsor told me to do that, and I would pray to this piece of paper. And then one day it changed, and it was God. And that scared me, because God, when you come from the religious mess I came from, that can really screw you up. But I decided I would just have the God I wanted, and if you didn't like mine, don't look. Because I know that I got to have a higher power to stay sober. And I'm pretty sure that a doorknob or a bush ain't going to help me. So I have my own understanding of God. And my understanding of God is not in this teeny-weeny little box. It's out here, and it changes all the time. And if it's not changing, I'm screwed. So then I got to 4 and 5, and Carla May kept telling me, Andrea, you need to write your inventory. You need to do this. And I wasn't doing it. One day, it was one evening, she came over, and she was one of those people, she just showed up. It was like she had some kind of Holy Ghost gift or something. She'd just show up right at the perfect moment. And my kids were probably 3 and 5 there. They were 2 and 4 when I got sober, so I had about a year sober. And she come knocking on the door. I'm in there screaming at my kids because they won't go to sleep. And I'm crying because I'm a terrible mother. And I guess the door was unlocked. She walks in and I turn around and there's Carla standing there. She very quietly went over and grabbed one of my notebooks and my pens and said, "Sit down, shut up, write. Resentments, guilt, fears, one word, we don't need a story. Fill the list out." And then I sat with her that night and I did my 5th step. She dragged my butt through 4 and 5. And if she had not been there, maybe I would have ended up killing myself. I don't know. That's how crazy I was up here. And what I got out of that was, God loves me. God loves me just as much, face down in my pew, crazy at my very worst. Then he loves me just as much now. And it didn't matter what I looked like. It never has mattered. God's love is about God. It's not about me. And there's nothing I can do to earn it because it's always there. And when I let myself off the hook and I accepted the things about myself, I felt free for the first time in my life. And I remember walking down the hall at work one day and smiling at people. And it was coming from my toenails up. And I literally stopped in the middle of the hallway like, what the hell just happened? Because I'm not very smiley. I have a resting bitch face, and I'm good with it. But I didn't have that day. And so when I got to the point where I was working 6 and 7, dealing with my defects and asking God to remove them and all that, the key for that one to me, and it's a stolen story, but I'm very visual, and I don't know who told it. I just remember in a meeting, my mind was blown. 6 and 7 are like being in a bathtub full of ping pong balls and water. And the ping pong balls are all my defects of character. And I'm trying to hold all these ping pong balls down at once. But every time I get them all held down, one pops up. Well, I'm an artist and I'm very visual, so I'm over here in this meeting, just got this whole vision going on. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, hell, I'm in here flinging water and screaming and yelling and fighting with the ping pong balls. It's mass chaos in my bathtub. I don't know about you guys. And I was like, what the hell? And I swear I heard God say, what are you even doing in the tub, Andrea? And I went, oh, I need to let this shit go and let God deal with it. And just be willing to let him change me. Because not every change in this world is bad. And that was step 6 and 7 to me. And do I still deal with defects of character? Yes. If you cut me off in traffic, I'll cuss you out. That's just me. And do I like that? Not always. Sometimes I'll actually go, God, please forgive me. And I'm always praying when I have my little grandson in the car that I don't say the wrong word. Because I don't want him to go home and say, well, Grandma said blah, blah, blah. Because, I would get in trouble. So, 8 and 9 were... Carla Mae did not let me say I'm sorry to anybody. She told me that when I start looking at my list of amends to make, that I need to be at the top of the list, because I didn't even put me on the list. She made me put me first. And then we started working through this list. The first ones behind me were my children. The living amends I made to them is I made sure that they had 3 meals a day and I got them to school and back on time. And I put them to bed at night. And I stayed home at night. That's a living amends. My little kids didn't need me to tell them how sorry I was. They just needed a mom. And an amends that I actually tried to make was years ago had gotten into a fist fight with my mom's second cousin because she accused me of stealing her son's radio. And I really did steal it, but I lied about it. And, this is what alcoholics do. So, anyways, I went to her, and this is how God does things. I lived here, she lived here. There's one way in and one way out. And so every time she came in, and I was outside, I saw her, and I was jumping behind trees because I did not want to deal with her. And I knew she was on my men's list, and it drove me crazy. And so I took $20, and I went to her door one day. I knocked on her door, and I said, I owe you an amends. I got sober. Here's why, blah, blah, blah. She screamed and yelled at me. Her son didn't even know what radio she was talking about, told me to F off and slammed the door in my face. What I got out of that was I didn't have to hide behind trees anymore. I own my stuff. Whatever she did with it, that's on her. So once I started understanding that the most important part of a living amends is stuff like don't steal shit from your parents, just that it's hard. It would be easier to tell you how sorry I am, but I had to change me. So that's what I started working on. 11 and 12 I do every day, and it's a daily thing. 10, 11, and 12 are like the daily things. And I remember my sponsor, Gail, after Carla moved on, Gail Langston, she's with the Lord now, she was my sponsor for 10 years. And she would always tell me, Andrea, work the steps till the steps work you. And I understand that today because they are who I am. Not that I'm perfect, I'm not. And when I would call her freaking out about something, she'd always say, what step did you trip over today? And I was, that would be 3 because I took my will back again, or 1 because I'm trying to run the show again, or whatever. And so, I just have tried to live life. I have been through a lot of things in my sobriety, and I don't think that I'm all that. I don't. I really, half the time I'm like, Jesus, God, why didn't I drink over that? I didn't even think to drink over it. I've had brain surgery. Had brain surgery in December 2020, and I didn't drink. That was scary shit, but I didn't even think about drinking. I was there to hold my dad's hand when he died, and it broke me in 2. I fell in his hospital room sobbing so loud that they had to close the door. And everybody, I ran out because he's my daddy. And you've got to understand, I hated him when I got sober. So for God to come in and me to allow God to heal that, it was a very sacred gift for me to sit there and hold his hand and tell him it's okay, go home. I'll see you soon. But I didn't even think about drinking. My first year of sobriety, I lost my hearing. I had some problems with this eardrum, and they did surgery. And when I came out, all I could hear was loud ringing. And this year, they didn't do surgery on it because I didn't want them to screw that one up too, even though I have profound loss here and mild loss here. I didn't even know I couldn't hear, and a professor told me I couldn't hear. I taught myself how to read lips 1 year in, and I didn't even know how I knew how to do that. It's just I had to survive, and I didn't get drunk over that. Why did I not? Because there is a God, because the 12 steps work, because the hand of AA was right there walking me through it all. And I will tell you, if I did not have AA, if I did not have God, if I didn't have a very small handful of people in my inner circle in recovery, I would not be here. I would not even try. January 20th this year, I found my stepmother had passed away in her bathtub alone. I found her. I didn't get drunk over it. I didn't even think about drinking. What I'm trying to say is the thing that I did not believe way back then was I can't live life unless I'm drunk. And now I don't even think about living life other than sober. So I put the work in, and then God blessed me abundantly. Today I have 2 grown children, 7 grandchildren, and 3 great-grandchildren. Mind blown. 2 of my great-grandchildren are twin girls. My daddy was a twin. And when they were born, I swear I heard my dad say, Andrea, I had to go so they could come here. And they fill my life with so much joy. And I'm so grateful for them. I have a little 6-year-old grandson named Michael. And he is one of the lights of my life. All my grandkids are in different ways, but Michael really. He's a little artist and a little Einstein all rolled into one. And I get with him and he's like my oil of joy. So, anyways, I'm almost done. I'm blind. This isn't long. I write, so I'm going to read 2 stories to you that I wrote to close. The first one is called The Sweaty Butt Crack Story. It's a story that Gail told me that I kind of fashioned around. So I love all my grandchildren. I'm crazy about them. The ones here as well as the ones in heaven. I have 2 in heaven. However, this story is about a few special and what I consider holy moments with my beautiful granddaughter, Courtney. Courtney has sky blue eyes and gorgeous long blonde hair. Her smile and energy light up a room. She's like an old creative soul and loves all forms of art and music. Her imagination is magnetic and draws me in like a moth to a porch light. In many ways, she is my mini-me because I have that same creative spirit. When she and I are together, it's like we have known each other for many lifetimes. We play and just totally enjoy each other. It's as if time stands still and nothing else exists but me and her in that holy moment. We always pick up right where we left off. She is one of my greatest joys and treasures. Courtney has an innocence about her that few people can comprehend. She is usually very optimistic and always believes the best in people. So in the rare moment that I find her unhappy, I always try to cheer her up. This last summer, she and her mom and sister stayed with us for a little while. One day I came in from work and Courtney was sitting on the couch looking sad. She was worried about things happening in her life and all the uncertainty around her. Of course, I had to lift her spirits, so I pulled her up to my lap and told her a story. I have always had my own stories made up of a mishmash of others that I have heard over the years. I told her this story, which is now known to us as the Sweaty Butt Crack Story. It made us both laugh, and hopefully it will you too. Life can often be like a parade. Imagine that you are marching in a band in the parade. All you can see is the person in front of you. Maybe they are skinny or fat or short or tall. Maybe their clothes look nice or maybe they are torn. Regardless, all you can see is the person in front of you. Sometimes all you can see is the sweaty butt crack in front of you. When you have been marching in this parade and staring at the sweaty butt crack in front of you for a long time, it can be tiring and frustrating. You wonder why God has you marching where you are, behind this sweaty butt crack. You might even feel like quitting and giving up because all you're ever going to see in life is a sweaty butt crack. When you go through times like this in life, you have to trust God because He is the ruler of the universe and He can see the entire parade, not just the sweaty butt crack in front of Him. He loves you and He's always there watching and protecting you. So the sweaty butt crack you are behind is there for a reason. When it is time, God will move you to a place that is more awesome than you could ever imagine. You just have to be patient, keep marching, and trust Him, because you know that not every day will be a sweaty butt crack day. Of course, Courtney and I were laughing our heads off by the end of the story. A few days went by. I came in tired from a hard day of work and said hello to Courtney. I asked her how her day was. She nonchalantly said, "Oh, it was just another sweaty butt crack day, Grandma." Little did she know I had one too. I hugged her and we both laughed. The sweaty butt crack comment is our inside joke now, and oddly enough, it is our reminder that God loves us and is still there, ever present in our lives, even on sweaty butt crack days. You might find the term sweaty butt crack offensive and totally ungodly, but I do not. I believe that God has the most awesome sense of humor. Why else would He give us the oil of joy? Courtney has always been my oil of joy, and I can think of no one better to march next to on sweaty butt crack days than her. And the last one, this is about two angels in my life. It's called Harold and George. When I got sober, I was 23 years old. I was stuck most of the time going to meetings with what I called old farts. 50 to 70-year-old men who sat around and shot the shit about the old days and tried to one-up each other on their war stories. They would tell me that I was too young, that I had not had enough to drink and to get back out there and do some more and come back in a few years. Then maybe I'd be ready to stay sober. They didn't think my bottom was low enough. But they did not understand one thing about me. I was convinced, like I am today, that if I took another drink, I would surely die. I also knew that if I could not find recovery in AA, I would commit suicide, or I would relapse and be a walking dead person for many years till alcoholism killed me. AA was the only option I had left. Just about the time I was fed up with these old men who mouthed off at me all the time, and I was ready to quit AA forever, God put two angels into my life. One was a big, tall, white guy named Harold. He was probably in his 60s, and he had been through hell and back. He had been to prison and all kinds of things I could never imagine. The other was a little black man named George. He was about the same age as Harold. He'd never been to prison, owned his own company, and worked hard all his life. Harold and George had been friends for many years in the program. For some reason, they sat one on each side of me at meetings at Original West Side Group. They would lean over and whisper in my ear and tell me not to listen to those idiots, that everyone has to hit their own bottom, that just because one person's bottom looks lower doesn't mean it is. They told me the only requirement is the desire to stay sober. They also said alcoholism is no respecter of age, race, gender, social, or economic status. The most important thing they told me is no one can take my seat in AA but me. I owe my life and much of my sobriety to these two old men. They are dead now, but what I wouldn't give to sit in a meeting with them today. Thank you for letting me share my story tonight.